What is up, guys? Mike Merlinski here with the Metal Webzine. We haven't talked to you guys in a while. Welcome to episode 36 of All the Metal Podcast. We're doing an end of the year episode with Greg DiPasquale. We'll call him in just a moment. Wow, what a fucking shit year this has been, huh? What did we see this year? We saw the death of live music amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. Eddie Van Halen died this year. Well, too many fucking heroes died this year, including local hero Brian Pattison, who we'll talk about in a little bit with Greg. So without further ado, just going to give Greg a call, and we'll jump right into this end of the shit show 2020 episode of All the Metal Podcast. Stay tuned. Well, hello, sir. How are you?
Hey, hanging in there. How are you?
I'm doing very well, considering how completely awful the majority of this year has been for myself and so many others.
I would say, especially considering that, your current state is probably even more impressive.
Right. Yeah, I was saying in my intro before giving you a call, talking about all the things we witnessed this year, including the death of live music. So it's been interesting.
It's crazy how a year that seemingly has involved so little as far as actual, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
We spent a lot of time kind of locked down and sedentary.
Yep.
And yet so much has happened. You would think a year where you really don't do much, that as little would happen, but that's clearly not been the case, you know?
Right. It's been jam-packed even with all the quarantining.
Yeah, I know.
All right, so I only have 6 things for you tonight, but they're all loaded, so I'm expecting like 10, 15-minute answers. Or maybe I'm wrong.
We'll see. Sometimes the key to successful communication is brevity, so...
Right.
We'll see what happens.
Okay, so just right out the gate, before we get into other top releases, your top albums of 2020.
Well, as I had expressed to you prior, I mean, a lot of records. First of all, just as far as the year is concerned, I mean, this is a great year. There's a lot of great records that came out this year, so that was good. That helped. But I don't really know that I bought enough records that came out this year to really do like a full list. But I mean, I did buy records this year that weren't released this year.
Right.
So it's like I have a best of 2020 where not all of them came out this year.
Sure.
So I guess we'll start with let's see here. Well, I guess I'll go with just off the top. We'll go with some of the records that came out this year that I really enjoyed.
Awesome.
Let's see. There was new records it was a good year for death metal. So,
well, thank God for that, right?
Yeah, I know. It was a good year for death metal and heavier tunes. So that was good. That there was some quality to match the discontent of the world.
Yep.
But there was great records. Cardiac Arrest, they had a great record this year. Not really death metal, but obviously in that realm. Napalm Death's new record was awesome. A little bit of a twist and a turn from them, kind of coupled with their normal affair, but it's very, very good. Skeletal Remains, they had a great album this year.
Right.
Undeath from Rochester.
Yep.
Their record was awesome. Obviously, be short-sighted and not advising, the new Necrot record. That was probably, I think, as far as death metal records are concerned this year, that might have been the most highly anticipated one, just at least as far as what was on my radar.
Yeah, I haven't checked it out yet, but I heard amazing things about it.
It's very good. It's very good. I don't personally think it's the best death metal record that came out this year, but it's definitely up there.
Awesome.
Let's see. We had Carnegie. They're from Cleveland. They had a record. Paul Gorfring from Embalmer's other band. That record is awesome too, called Forlorn and Forsaken. That came out that rips. We also had records from. This is kind of, I guess this is probably maybe be more of the more on the heavier side. The newest Macabre album, Carnival Killers, that came out fairly recently.
Right, with Lake of Fire. Yeah, it's a good album.
And those guys are, those guys are just sickos. You know, they're just so weird and bizarre, and their records are just still so vibrant. And they've been doing this for 35 years. So
sure.
It's always good when bands that have been around for that long still sound fresh in a way. You know.
Mhm. Yeah.
So now, kind of moving on to, I guess, non-death metal side of things, we had records coming out from Solicitor, I don't remember where they're from. I think they're from Portland, maybe. They're from somewhere out west, but I played a few shows with them last year with Fatal Curse, did a weekend with them and Lady Beast, and their new record that came out this year, Spectral Devastation, is awesome.
Oh, cool.
Highly recommend that. If anyone out there is listening and they're interested in some old school tinge, speed metal, like maybe in the vein of like Agent Steel or something like that.
Right.
I would check it out for sure. It's a very, very great record.
Yeah, I've never even heard of that band. I will check out that band.
Yeah, Solicitor, Solicitor, and of course, umlauts over the O's. So we got that. We also had the newest Armored Saint record.
Oh, okay.
Which I gotta say, it's, as far as I'm concerned, I think it might be the best thing they've ever done, which is weird, because considering they've been around they've been around since longer than we've been alive. I think they've been around.
I believe
for
so.
40 years at this point. Yeah, they had a break from 92 to like 2000, but honestly, and I'm privy to, I've been listening to that band for probably 20 years now, give or take.
Sure.
And their older records are cool, but they were always like kind of, in the grand scheme of things, they were almost always like, at best, like a 6 or 7 out of 10,
Did they just kind of blend in with everybody else for you?
No, it wasn't that. It's almost like they were, I don't know what it was, but whatever it was that they did that just sounded off to me when they were in their 20s.
Oh, okay.
They don't have that anymore.
Oh, okay.
They're kind of operating antithetical to the way most bands work, which is obviously they're great when they're young and they're first coming out, and then they kind of taper off as time goes on in age.
But you're liking it more and more as they age, so it's going in reverse.
I think that they're a better band with age. I think
sure.
they're a better band now than they were in 1985.
They might have just taken the time to find themselves if you looked at their progression that way.
Honestly, I think that they were a band, and it's obvious. It's obvious now. I think they're a band that had that was maybe a little more varied musically as far as like their roots.
Yeah.
Than maybe what would have been accepted back then. And maybe they were trying to be maybe they were trying to be something that, they're obviously a metal band, but back then, it's almost like you had to kind of pick a side of the fence.
Okay, yeah.
And to me, just obviously, this is all hindsight because we were just kids when they were new. I think their first record, they've been a band for 40 years, but I think their first record came out when I was like 2.
Mm-hmm.
And they were never hard enough or heavy enough or fast enough to be a thrash band.
Sure.
But they were also, and they're an LA band, they were also kind of out of favor in LA because they weren't a glam band either.
Right.
So I just think that they were maybe a band of conflicted interests as far as what they wanted to be musically.
Right.
And the thing that worked for them, though, and the thing that made those old records, and I don't have all their records, but I've got maybe, I think, 4 or 5 or 6 of them. And I think what made those records worth purchasing is that even though they were maybe, at best, like I said, anywhere from a 6 or 7 out of 10, is that they have one of the best singers in the history of the genre.
Mm-hmm.
And when they, on those old records, when they did hit, they hit huge.
Right.
And their great songs are great enough, for me at least, to warrant buying those records. Because when they do hit, they're so good, it allows you to just kind of, all right, well...
And to keep you interested in what is forthcoming, like what will the next album bring, yeah.
Yes, and I think that their output, since they got back together in 2000, has been much better on a grand scale than their output from 84 to 90, in their first run. So again, I can't stress that enough. The new Armored Saint record is awesome. It's just, they have one of the best singers in the history of the genre, and it just seems like these guys they've honed their craft for so long that they know what they want to do now, and they know how to go about doing it. And sometimes maybe that's a skill that takes time to develop. I know I can relate to that for sure.
Right. Yep.
So, all right, yeah, New Armored Saint. That record is awesome. I recommend that to anyone.
Hell yeah.
And Eternal Champion, also kind of traditional metal from Texas. Their new record, Ravening Iron, that came out this year. That's awesome as well. I really enjoyed that. Now, that is going to basically
sum up 2020 for you?
2020. So now here's some records that I got this year that are not from this year.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
I recommend. So I guess we'll kind of maybe rapid fire on this. Obviously, this is an earlier episode, but I highly recommend the Pole album by Winger.
Oh, yeah. Naturally.
Gormant, The Ending Quest, which is a band from Sweden. They only had one record in the early 90s, and it was reissued this year on Transcending Records. And I really, really, really enjoy that one. It's awesome. It's almost like kind of got like a more intense death metal amorphous vibe to it.
Sure.
So
awesome.
Really, really enjoyed that. That one's great. Tony Martin era Black Sabbath record called Tear came out in '89. That record is awesome. It's basically just it came out in 1990. Yeah, it's kind of it's a really underrated, Sabbath album. The whole Sharon Osbourne camp has really tried to
bury it.
Really, I mean, she's done a good job of trying to diminish the impact of Dio Sabbath.
Oh, of course,
and
of course.
And that had an actual legend in that era of the band.
Oh, right.
Frontman,
Right.
So, I mean, if she was able to bury Ronnie James Dio's Black Sabbath and Ian Gillan's Black Sabbath she was certainly going to bury Tony Martin.
Oh yeah, of course, the lesser known, right?
Yeah, so I highly recommend that. It's a great record. I really enjoyed that.
Cool.
Also, we had a record by a band called Psychotic Waltz. They had an album called The Social Grace. This came out in like 89 or 90, and man, this thing was a lot of fun to find. I guess it's more of like Metallica if they were a progressive metal band.
Yep.
I guess maybe that's the best way of putting it. The vocals are a lot different from Hetfield or anything like that. I would say the riffing has like the weight of Metallica, but they really don't have anything flashy going on. But I really enjoyed that. It's definitely more of a progressive metal kind of thing, but not in like a Dream Theater way. I would say it's maybe more of like a progressive metal in like an old school Fates Warning kind of way. Right. Either way, it's awesome. Really, really enjoyed that one. Let's see. I have also got Salutations from the Ghetto Nation by Warrior Soul. That came out in 92 or 93.
Yeah.
And that band is great. I mean, it might be the perfect record for this year.
Oh, okay.
It's not really metal. It's definitely more of like a hard rock kind of thing, but the vocals are very, very hyper social. And I think one of the things...
I know what you mean.
I think the thing that might have held them back was timing and the fact that, you know, they did kind of come around at the turn of the decade between the 80s and 90s, and maybe, I mean, and the singer Corey Clark was, like I said, very, very socio-political type lyrics, and he was very, very angry and frustrated and very disenchanted with a lot of things, and I think that maybe that might have been, they might have been too early on that movement. They might have been too mad too soon. Because obviously, you know, you had stuff like Rage Against the Machine coming out in 93, you know, and that kind of, it was angry, and it was very, very socially conscious, and
yes.
And obviously that clicked with a wide audience, and I just think that maybe this band was too angry too early, and this record is definitely, you're going to find a lot of content lyrically on this record that's going to very, 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 very much tap into really the frustration of society today. It's very, very relevant to
so you're sold on it.
Today's world. Yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah.
And I was a fan of the band prior. You know, I had a couple records, but I just never had this one. And I finally picked up on it, and it's just like you can tell there's a very, very frustrated young man behind that microphone.
It's impactful because it's relatable.
It's impactful, and yes, that is correct. It's very impactful because the relatability, yes. But also, most importantly, the lyrics. The lyrics could be great and they could be impactful, but if the music sucks, it almost doesn't matter. And luckily, the music is very, very hard-hitting. It's got a lot of punch. I would say maybe they're most metallic. They're probably kind of like a Sabbath-y kind of thing.
Oh, cool.
But I would say they're primarily just like a hard rock band. But yeah, definitely that one is. I would say that record might even be. It's very cathartic. Listen, yeah. Sometimes it's good just to hear someone being pissed off.
Yes. Yeah, especially now.
Especially if it's got that relatability to today. You know, if you can connect it to your current world. You know, there's a lot of, obviously it's a lot of frustration this year. I don't think I need to tell that to you or anyone who may be listening.
Oh yeah.
You know, definitely was a year of turmoil and strife, and I ain't talking the bands, although they definitely are also good for this environment. But you know, it's definitely a frustrating year, and this is definitely a record that is exuding a lot of frustration. So it feels good to listen to.
Right, it's an outlet. Yeah.
No, yeah, definitely. It's definitely very much of a release. Another release I would recommend. It was put out by just joint release between CDN Records in Canada and the Growl Records, which is obviously run by Cannibal Cam in Canada. It's the release of it's basically the Grotesque Infection anthology release.
Sure.
Legendary, Buffalo death metal band from the early 90s. Had a couple awesome demos that are finally available on one release on CD. It's awesome. Anyone who's a fan of old school death metal, underground style, really, really just brutal death metal grind, pick this up. Especially if you're from Buffalo and you love death metal, you need to know your roots, you need to know your history. I recommend any fan of death metal, especially the brutal stuff, to get this, but I would say that if you're from Buffalo, if you're from this area, you're from this region, this is a mandatory purchase. You should own this.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
So yes, Grotesque Infection. And I guess last, but certainly not least, I will go with the Lights Out album by the British band UFO.
Oh, okay.
And
very cool.
That was a band that I was aware of, obviously, just because they're kind of legendary rock band, kind of bordering on hard rock, maybe in some metal touches as well, but definitely a rock band. And I was aware of some of the stuff. And there's a song on this record called Love to Love, and it blew me away. So I checked the record out, and the record blew me away. It's just a classic slab of rock. And, my favorite song of all time in the history of music is Black Lodge by Anthrax. And it had really been uncontested.
We've talked about this, yes.
Yeah.
Your love really of Black Lodge.
Yeah, it's been basically uncontested for a very, very long time. And this is the first time I would say that it maybe shook in its boots a little bit once I heard Love to Love by UFO. It's that's in the running for possibly one of my favorite songs of all time.
Yep.
Like I said, it was the first song I've heard in a very, very long time that kind of put a little fear into the standing of Black Lodge.
Sure.
So,
right.
So that was basically my year in music, I guess.
Awesome. Our background music right now is an album you got me into, one of my top albums that I picked up this year, but that came out in 2003, and it's Dismembers Where Iron Crosses Grow. And it's it's fucking incredible, man. Like the guitars are all over the place, and that's what I love about it. Like, it's just grimy, dirty, dissonant death metal 1 minute, and just the happy Iron Maiden harmonies the next. Like, it's a really cool contrast in every song. I love it.
Yep, that's that record. That was the first Dismember record I got as well.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm, definitely. I'm glad you enjoy that. It's a lot of fun. They really had to me they were out of that scene of the original, I guess for lack of a better term, Stockholm style, Swedish death metal bands.
Yep.
They were always my favorite just because they were more intense, and they kind of had this vibe where they were basically just like a combination of old school death metal, like classic style, like Autopsy and stuff like that. And then they had the Iron Maiden vibe in there too, and I really think they're actually kind of the unheralded influence on the whole melodic death metal scene as well too.
Right.
I always thought that they
the original melodic death metal forefather. Yeah, right.
I don't know if they were ones that are first, but I feel like they're kind of overlooked as one of them. Yeah. Progenitors of that style.
Sure.
I mean, they were definitely doing more traditional style melodic heavy metal mixed in with their death metal before, really a lot of the other bands that were doing it. I mean, I think them doing that kind of melodic stuff with regular death metal, I think predates stuff like, with Flames, Dark Tranquility, and, I think they were even doing melodic stuff maybe even before At the Gates were. I think I might be off on that, but, they predated a lot of bands kind of doing melodies with their stuff, so.
Right.
They definitely deserve to be in that conversation, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so switching gears, and we were talking about all the unfortunate things of the past year. This might not be the easiest question in the world to answer. Tell your favorite Brian Pattison story.
I would just say that. I mean, it's not really like a story per se. I guess it's more of like, well, I mean, I guess it kind of is a story, but, when we did that thing with Cam Lee.
Yep.
In 2011.
Day of Death?
Yeah, Day of Death.
The second day, yeah.
It wasn't, Brian, he put a lot of faith in us, in Cephalophile.
Sure.
And because he put his faith in us, he was putting his ass on the line. This cost him a lot of money.
No doubt.
He paid Cam. I don't really know. I'm not really too sure about the details, but I'm fairly certain that Cam didn't want to get paid. I think Brian just covered his expenses.
Sure.
To get up to Buffalo and back. And he rented the venue, and Brian put money into that, and he put his faith into us that we weren't going to fuck it up. We weren't going to let him down and make Cam look bad, ourselves look bad, or him look bad. And, that kind of trust is not... If someone puts that faith in you, you can't fuck that up.
Right.
If someone believes in you, then you need to respect that. And anyone who has ever put that faith or belief in me, that always really, really means a lot to me. It's always special to me. And he did that. And he really didn't... basically, this is a lot of, kind of, not verbatim, but close. I remember when he was talking about doing this gig. I think it might have been February or March of 2011. And he was talking about getting bands or finding musicians to put a band together to back up Cam while, they play From Beyond or whatever. And, in so many words, I said, no, we'll do it. No one's going to do it better than us.
Right.
And I said that, and I really tried to not waste words, and I really tried to have what I say mean things.
Yeah. Well, it was warranted because you guys delivered.
I try to say what I mean, and I mean what I say. And while it might be a little cocky to say, listen, dude, don't fuck around with trying to get other people. No one here is going to do it better than us.
But you were right.
I meant that. I meant that. I mean it today, and I still believe it. I think we delivered.
You did deliver.
And Brian gave us that opportunity, not just because he liked our band or, he was a friend. He wasn't just a promoter or a guy in another band. He was a friend.
Yeah, definitely.
And he was our friend, and he believed in us. And you can't fuck your friends over when they do stuff like that. And so that'll always be my favorite, I guess, thing with Brian. It really, again, if someone puts their faith in me like that, it really does mean a lot to me. And it shows that to me, that says that I did something right. If I got to a point where someone was actually, they would believe in me and put their trust in me to not fuck up and to deliver, then I did something right.
Right.
And, unfortunately, this is, when someone passes away, all you have is the past. You're done making new memories, and that's unfortunate.
Yes.
But
Very.
I'm glad that the stories and the memories I do have of Brian are kind of all, along those lines.
Yeah, we're all fortunate to have known him, so
yeah, definitely.
We'll always have that.
Yeah, so I guess that's probably my favorite Brian. I mean, there's lots of other, inside jokes and happenstances and incidents just randomly of hanging out. Because, I mean, for a period of time, I would say for, probably a good 3-4 years, I mean, we saw each other all the time just because shows were more prevalent. We had the funeral home, and there was just a lot more things going on. And obviously, I had a lot less priority in life. I had no kids.
Yeah, of
for
course.
those 4 years. I was only married for half of it, and so obviously with priority and kids and work, so we saw each other less and less, but we got a lot of memories, a lot of great memories with him, for sure. But that'll always be that'll be the most valuable one for me.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the new thing, obviously, is live stream performances because nobody can play an actual show. So have you taken in any, memorable live stream performances from any bands, since the pandemic started?
Not really.
Not into that?
It's not... I don't know.
It's not the same, I know that, but...
I can understand why it's being done.
Yeah, sure.
And I think it's a clever... it's a clever revenue stream, and bands, and that's the thing that sucks about all this is that, it's not the huge bands. I mean, the huge bands are definitely taking a hit because everyone's taking a hit. But the bands that are getting killed the worst this year are the ones who are making a go at it, and they're doing it, but they're dependent on touring. They're dependent on gigs. They're dependent on sales and stuff like that. The mid-level bands are the ones that are getting killed this year, and that sucks. And so I can understand why, necessity, dictates the terms of operation. And, so I'm glad that these bands are able to find a new way of making money, or, by any, however they can, really, whether it's limited merch or live stream gigs. It's just a good way to keep the lights on, as they say. So while I can get it from that perspective, just from a vibe angle, it doesn't really, I don't know, it doesn't really interest me too much.
Right.
Because it's, to me, it's no different from just watching a video on YouTube or something like that.
Right, just watching the video after the live show. You know how people will post videos that they took at the show after the show? That's how I kind of look at it. Even though it's live, it doesn't feel live because it just reminds me of watching the video the day after, Yeah,
and it's, again, from a perspective of bands just doing what they can, it's great. Definitely.
Yeah, I totally get it, yeah.
But from an enjoyment standpoint, there's nothing like sitting in the crowd and just, having the bass drum, feel that in your chest and, and just feeling the vibe. There's really no vibe to it. And that's, at this point in my life, I think I'm at a point in my life where vibe is probably, almost paramount. As far as,
it's critical, yeah.
It's it's got to have that. Because, it's when you're young, you can get by on just enthusiasm and the lust for the thrill, When we were young, we played any show at any time, wherever, for whoever, and for whatever amount of money, right?
Yeah.
Well, you do that times, 500 or 1,000 or whatever many times you play a gig, eventually, once you repeat stuff, you can't, I shouldn't say, someone can't, but the rush goes away. So you have to either do it less or do it differently.
Right, find a way to make it more exciting, right.
Yeah, and so like there's just no, I don't know. It's gotta have an energy to it that isn't creatable in really any other facet of life. And those live shows are the best. And they don't happen while I'm looking at a phone or I'm looking at a laptop or whatever. It happens when I'm there.
Absolutely.
So I'm for it, but I'm not into it.
Yep, same. Totally same. Name one positive to come from the pandemic that you've noticed, if any.
Well, I think in a year like this, there's been so much unsavory, so much about it that's been unsavory, and so much negativity, and just a buffet of bad.
Yeah.
I would think that you would have to, because it's gone to that extreme. I'm big on polarity. I'm big on balance.
Yep.
And if I could find the extreme in one direction, I think I'm usually pretty. I feel like it's just innate in me to try and find something in the opposite direction as well too, to balance things out. And that's not to say that I take good times and I immediately think of bad times, because I don't think that's really healthy either.
Sure.
I think you have to enjoy the good times for what they are, and everything's fleeting. You enjoy good times for as long as you can, but I also think in the opposite of that, you shouldn't dwell on it. You should enjoy it, but not dwell on it.
Right.
It's the same thing with the bad times. You shouldn't dwell on it. You can feel the pain, and you can accept the pain and deal with the whatever it is of the situation. But you shouldn't dwell on it, because that's not a place where you want to stay. At least for me personally, that's not a mindset I enjoy staying in.
Sure.
So I think I naturally try and find, just as a way of self-preservation, I think I just try and find a way out of it by finding.
You try to find that silver lining to keep your spirits alive and to continue moving forward.
Yeah, find the polarity to that negativity. And then obviously, it takes no talent to find the bad this year. I mean, if you're alive and you are oblivious to the bad and the shit show this year, well, then I don't even know what to say. Then maybe you're maybe a little too glasses half full. Then you're just maybe oblivious. But I think that one good thing about this year is that you do hopefully maybe learn to appreciate the good a lot more.
Right.
There's a lot of people who were alive. I mean, no different from any other year, I guess. Death is a part of life, but a lot of people died this year.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of people die every year.
Right.
But
the circumstances are different this year, and we knew a lot of people it hit close to home this year.
The circumstances are definitely a lot different this year. People are getting sick. People are dying. People are losing jobs. People are losing their businesses. People are losing their livelihood. It's just a year of loss. It's a year that started taking, and just like anything else, the more things you get, the more you want. And this year just kept taking and taking and taking and taking. Whether it was people, places, or things, just took. And it's really, really, really easy to just live in that misery, But if you did have an appreciation, or you have an awareness of the things that are not that shitty in your life and the things that are good, I would imagine and hope that people learn to cling to them this year. you know?
Right.
Just as really a life raft or, you know, or an umbrella or some sort of shelter from the storm and the bullshit, you know? So I would hope the best thing that could have happened this year to really anyone is an appreciation of the things that they did have that are good, that maybe they might have even taken a little for granted just because, I don't know, things that are constants, things that are always there, they're easy to not lose an appreciation for, but they just become a given.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And you maybe forget that in reality, nothing's ever a given.
Sure.
Someday, there's not a tomorrow. You know what I'm saying?
That's right. That's right.
And I think maybe, I guess if I could take a short answer and make it long, maybe the best thing that could have happened this year for anyone was to not assume givens anymore and
That's
appreciate the magic and the beauty and the power of the things that are great in your life.
Yep. Right.
You know, at the risk of sounding totally pretentious, I guess, you know.
Right. Right. Yeah, so my last thing for you was and I think you actually I was wondering if you were going to touch on it with the last question. I think you pretty much did, so kind of repeating myself, but what was your biggest takeaway from 2020? Like, what life lesson did you learn this year that you will carry with you for the rest of your life? And I think I know what it is because you almost said it at the end there.
I think I pretty much...
Yeah.
I think I pretty much got it in that last question. Because, again, I just double down and just appreciate what you have because you might not always have it.
Right. Yeah, that is exactly what I was getting at, is take nothing for granted.
Yeah.
Everybody learned that this year if they didn't know it already, so...
It's a cliche, but it's a cliche.
Totally applies. Totally applies.
Totally applicable, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so
and we got to have some fun. You know, we definitely had our laughs. You know, we had our little series of podcasts for a few months, and that was great. And that was
right, and we wouldn't have done that otherwise. We I don't think you and I would have done like a podcast for 3 or 4 months if this didn't happen.
No, and that's again, it's just, you know, you have to, you know, if you're pushed up against the wall. You know, you have to get creative sometimes. And sometimes it's just talking on a phone with your bud about metal.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, a lot of people learn to adapt really fucking quick this year.
Well, it's survival, it's self-preservation,
yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Eventually, like, you know, in times like this, there's a song by a band called Life, Sex, and Death called Rise Above. And, you know, paraphrasing one of the lines, it's like, you know, how's it go? Pinned up against a wall. How's it go? Well, whatever. It's like I'm pinned up against a wall while someone throws knives at me.
Right.
You know.
Yep.
And when you get to that mindset, and it feels like that, you rely more on the hope that the person is going to miss.
Oh, sure.
Then you rely on your hope to move out of the way.
Yep.
Or your ability to move out of the way.
Yep.
And I think that, you know, it's obviously this is a year where I'm sure a lot of people were bummed out, depressed, and, you know, and eventually, again, just kind of concrete shoes in the mind, you end up, at least just from my perspective, my point of view, you know, you end up just hoping the other, you know, whatever is going to come at you next misses you. And you don't trust your own ability to just get out of the way.
Right.
You're hoping for what's coming to miss and not relying on yourself to move.
Right.
You know, and
you have to want to move. You have to want to save yourself, right?
Yeah, and in a year like this, that's clearly just going to keep taking and taking and taking. I mean, basically, we're not done fucking until this year says it's done.
Right. Sure. No, yeah. Hey, still a lot of time left. Still got at least 48 hours left.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, we sure do.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's, just keep moving on,
Yep.
Just gotta keep moving. You do what you can while you can, and hopefully someday, eventually, we'll spin out of this again. And
Yep.
where we'll land when this, tornado shits us out of its cone, who knows?
Right.
But
yep.
I guess guess we'll see everyone in the cornfields, right?
That's right. When the dust settles.
Yeah, right.
Getting back to music really quick, just to finish up. So, what would you say your top dogs are? I got the impression Armored Saint and Grotesque.
I guess to avoid mucking it up with the older records that I bought this year, just to keep it fresh, I will say the best records this year, my favorites were Armored Saint, Solicitor. Blue Oyster Cult had a great record too.
That's true.
Shit.
I know, right? Slipping through the cracks.
Solicitor. Fuck. Man. Are you looking to have me put in 3? Like, just give 3?
Hey, it's up to you, man. You could have said 1.
I don't know if I can do that. All right, I'll try and narrow it down. Try and narrow it down to 3. I'll say Solicitor.
Yep.
New Napalm Death. And man, it's tough. The death metal was really, really good this year.
Yes.
Shit. I don't know. Fuck. We'll just go with what I said already.
All right.
My brain's shutting down.
Hey, fair enough. And, if anybody listened to this that hasn't heard of those bands or checked out those records, they probably will now because of the way you just sold them.
Well, hey, if my opinion on tunes, is enough to sway someone to check out our records, then that's fucking awesome.
My work is done here.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, sir. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you again. I wish we would do this more often, but I know life happens. And Happy New Year. Make it the best you can. Do your best.
Yes.
Do your best to transition.
Happy New Year to you, Mikey. Happy New Year to anyone listening. And just hold on and don't let go.
Don't let the wheels fall off. That's right. All right.
Exactly.
You have a good night.
Catch you, dude.
Bye-bye.
All right, peace. See ya.